Hey, welcome to Evention.
And welcome to Sandy Hills Farm in Aiken, South Carolina.
We're here for the winter and bringing you an all-new winter series. Our first episode today is our top 10 tips on how to get more out of your cross-country walk. All right, guys, so my first tip is using a measuring wheel when you're walking your course. This is useful because at the end of your course, you're going to come up with a number. You can then compare that with the official distance listed in the course map and compare it. Now, if your distance is shorter than the official one, then it's going to tell you that it's a little bit easier for you to make the time. And same if you get a little bit of a longer distance, it's going to be a little bit harder. Now, we can also take this information a step further and become even more accurate by using minute markers. And the way we do that, we find out the speed for our level. For example, 450 meters per minute. Then as we're walking, every time we find an interval of 450 meters, we stop, take a look around, mark where we are in the course, maybe beside the big tree or right beside jump number 5. And then that way, when we're riding along the cross-country course, we can look down at our watch and figure out, are we ahead of time or do we need to get going? It's a really good way to help you make the time and be a little bit more accurate with where you are on the course.
Tip number 2, consider the time of day you're going to be competing on course. For example, if you're walking your cross-country course in the morning, but you compete at 3:30 in the afternoon, there could be shadows that might distract your young horse from the stitch. Another thing to consider is if you're walking your course and it's really quiet out and the next day there's going to be a lot of crowds around the water or a difficult question, this is something else that could distract a horse. So prepare yourself and think about these scenarios.
Tip number 3 is finding a line. This is a really useful technique to be more accurate with your tricky fences rather than just winging it. It's as simple as 3 points. So we find a point on the jump where we want to jump it, we find a point in the distance, and our horse's ears, line them up, Bob's your uncle. So let's find the first point on the jump. Let's use this corner as an example. If I'm looking here, if I make an apex out of it, this is probably about where I want to jump it. So I'm going to pick up this pole here to represent where on the jump we're aiming for with the horse. Let's say about there. All right. The second point we have to find is something in the distance that lines up with our spot on the jump. As you can see here, we've got a jump down there, just down the hill that lines up perfectly. So that's what I'm going to be looking for as I come around. And there's also a whippet there that I can aim for too. And then when I'm coming around the turn, I'm trying to line up my horse's ears with the spot on the jump and the thing in the distance, and I'll have a perfect line every time.
Tip number 4, check the weather forecast. If it's supposed to rain overnight, this is going to change the conditions of the footing on your course. So you'll want to think about your stud selection, how fast you're going to go, and also the takeoff and landings, which could be pretty boggy. Make sure you check out all of this stuff before you head out on course.
Tip number 5, being aware of the terrain on the course. So as you're walking, be mindful, where are the jumps situated in relation to the terrain? So for example here, I've got a big old table at the top of a hill. Now I can actually use this to my advantage. The hill is going to do a lot of the slowing down or balancing before the jump. I'm not going to have to use too much half halt. If I just half halted like I would, say, on flat ground, I might end up actually pulling the horse too slow, and then I end up at the base of the jump with not enough power. So be mindful of how the hill is going to affect your half halts going uphill as well as downhill. Now the opposite happens here. It's a little bit harder to control the horse's momentum when you're running down the hill. So you may need to take a little bit more time or start a little bit earlier with your half halts so you're balanced before you get to a big jump. You don't want to come running down here like some kind of equine avalanche, or you're going to have a problem at that jump. All right, guys, let's head to a Shramo shout-out. We have some really exciting news for our 2014 Shramo shout-outs, and that is that the folks over at Riding Warehouse have jumped on board and are going to be supporting this segment by offering a $100 gift card for every charity that we feature. It's just awesome because a lot of these guys are now going to be able to purchase equipment and stuff that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So thank you, Riding Warehouse. Do me a favor and go online and email these guys, tell them how cool they are for doing this. It's just awesome. But without further ado, let's feature our charity today, and that is Horses for Heroes, based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a fantastic charity. They are a horsemanship, wellness, and skill set restructuring program for veterans and active military members that have suffered physical injury or post-traumatic stress while serving their country. It's a really great charity. I encourage you to go online, check them out, tell them they're doing a great job, or see if you can help. Welcome back, guys. We hope you enjoyed our new supercharged Shramo shout-out. We're super excited about it and hope you are too. All right, guys, tip number 6 is tired horse versus fresh horse. And basically all that means is being aware of what kind of jumps you have, like maybe towards the end of the course or at the top of a big hill. When a horse exerts a lot of energy, he starts to get real tired and he's gonna get a little bit more on the forehand, a little bit more strung out. Stride's gonna get a bit long and a little bit more downhill. And when the horse is like that, he needs a little bit of extra help to kind of get him together. We don't wanna chuck him at a big old jump all strung out and downhill because he might have a bad jump that way. So be aware when you're walking the course, looking for the kind of jumps where you might have to take a little bit more time, a little bit more preparation to help him have the best possible jump, even if he is a little bit tired.
Tip number 7. This isn't so much for walking your cross country, but more a tip to help you prepare before you go out on course. What I like to do is with my cross country watch, I set it for 10 seconds. That way, when I get in the box, I can push it when the starter says 10 and it counts down, and I don't have to be worrying about when he says go to push the start button. I can start thinking about my first fence.
Tip number 8, footing. When you walk the course, that's your best opportunity to really get a feel for the footing all around the course. Now, the information and what you learn from the footing will help you make some decisions, like what kind of studs are you gonna put in, how are you gonna approach certain jumps, are you gonna go really fast and try and make time, are you gonna take it pretty steady, etc., etc. So for example, down here in Carolina, it's very sandy. So you're probably not gonna be putting on huge studs. You can feel pretty good and confident about the horses running and letting them open up a little bit. And it's probably gonna hold up really well to the rain if it was to rain overnight before the show. So take the time to really check out the footing, and then that way, on the morning of cross country, you'll be able to make all those decisions pretty easily.
Tip number 9, remember to wear your waterproof boots when you're out walking your course. This way, you can walk any of the distances you need to that are in the water jump, or just to get your line right. Or you can go all natural, like Dom does.
I love the feel of the pond scum between my toes.
Tip number 10, walking your distances more than once. When you're walking the cross-country course, there's a lot of information to take in, lots of different kinds of jumps that will affect different horses in different ways. I find it useful to kind of walk your distances a couple of different times. You might even experiment with different lines or different directions just to see what works for you and your horse. It's really important that we have a good decision that we've already thought through and are very comfortable with before we set out on course. Now, it may not go according to plan, but we've got to be committed to it when we are approaching a jump. Now, there are a little word of caution here. Don't get struck down by analysis paralysis and spend an hour out here walking it over and over again, because it's probably going to make you even more nervous about it. Walk it a couple of times, figure out what's going to be best for you, and stick with it. If you have the opportunity in the morning to come out and watch a couple of people go through, that can be a really great thing, and you can see what works and what doesn't. But remember, you know your horse better than anyone else, so stick with your plan and you should be fine. All right, guys, hopefully you got a few good tips to help you get more out of your cross-country course walks. We hope to see you next week. See ya.